So how about if I move and have Karen and OJ and Samara come up and see what kinds of questions you all have about the things that I've talked about. But if they can't answer, they'll probably get you answers. So this is a really great opportunity. I really hope you all have lots of questions, and those people online as well.
And if you don't have any, we'll say from the stable side of things, this program is very, very new. Obviously, the treasurer in her position as the chief financial officer for Kentucky is very, very invested in people having the opportunity to save. That said, we don't want to make you feel like we are experts in disability benefits. We don't want to make you feel like we know things that we don't. So if you ask a question and we can't answer it, and Carolyn's sort of seen us walk through this before, I will take out my phone, I will write it down, I will take it to our folks that are experts that we work with in Ohio, because we want to make sure that we are answering the questions as best we can, and we don't want to lie to you and act like we know things that we don't. So we want to put that out there first and foremost.
I have a son who has disabilities, and he has a brother who lives in South Carolina. So if I were to start an ABLE account, well, the son with disabilities lives in Kentucky, but would I be better off doing it in Ohio because it's a national place? So what would be the advantage or disadvantage to do it in Kentucky or Ohio?
Oh, so the question, so we're repeating questions so folks can hear it. Basically, if you're trying to start ABLE accounts or a stable Kentucky account, should you start your account based on where you live or based on where the beneficiary will live? Is that?
Or might live in the future. He might live there in the future.
He may in the future move to South Carolina.
Right. Okay. Well, I would say if you've got a Kentucky resident that is the beneficiary of the stable Kentucky account or of an ABLE account, then you should sign up with the stable Kentucky program. Again, the reason for that is because Kentucky is tied to Ohio's program, which is a national ABLE account program. And so as a result, you'll get the benefits that we get as Kentuckians signing on with Ohio's program. So come April, you'll have the fee that's only $3.50 a month, $3.50 a month. You'll get the investment fees that are low, and you'll get the involvement with Vanguard, which is a very well-respected investment company. They're only $50 to sign on. So then when you if you decided you wanted to transfer over to a national program, or if South Carolina has one by then, you would have those options. And to get from Kentucky to Ohio, it would be a much simpler process because the tools are really the same. And to kind of add to that, just so you all understand how this works with Ohio, we are utilizing, Ohio is basically footing the bill so that Kentucky taxpayers don't have to.
Is that just, I think it's brilliant.
It is.
That's so many more people.
And it goes to the good nature of our boss, the state treasurer, Allison Ball. She's got a good relationship with Josh Mandel, who's Ohio's treasurer. They are a much bigger state than us. The stable team in Kentucky is what you see in front of you, basically. And they've got a stable director. They've got a deputy director, a general counsel, like a team of coordinators. And they put in millions of dollars to make their program work really well. Part of the reason is that they want to make sure it's national. And so we've got a really good partnership with them so we continue to utilize those resources, their customer service team, Vanguard, which they pay for. So all of those things are footed by Ohio. So that's why we're connected to them. So that's why I would encourage you to start it here. And if you decide to move or if you need to use a national account, you can just roll right into Ohio.
And in the interim, if I understand it correctly, our residents will get the services for the ABLE account at the same cost that Ohio residents do.
Yes.
Whereas Marie, if and when your son moves to South Carolina, then he would become a non-resident and have slightly higher fees.
That's right.
It's still not big, but it's slightly higher.
And there's the possibility, maybe, that there could at some point be legislation that would allow for some part of the contribution to be tax deductible for Kentucky residents. That's not the case right now, but that might, there's at least conversation about that.
Yes, to that point, again, for those that couldn't hear, the goal would be to have some deductions at the state level for taxes. It is part of a bill that the treasurer's been involved in That's pending before the session now. Of course, tax stuff is likely not to come up in this session, but that is something that our boss
happen.
should figure out. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So with the original 529 plan for education, the person who opens the account is the owner and the child is simply the beneficiary. Did I understand you correctly to say that with a 529A, the actual beneficiary is also the owner?
Yes.
Yes.
So follow-up question to that. With the traditional original 529, you could accelerate 5 years worth of gifting, and with the ABLE you cannot. Okay.
So again, if you didn't hear, the question was for 529 accounts, I want to repeat your question.
The person who opens the account is the owner, not the beneficiary.
Yes, the person who opens the account is the owner, not the beneficiary. With ABLE accounts, the beneficiary is the owner. And with 529 accounts, there was the option to accelerate 5 years the gifting. With 529A accounts, you cannot do that. Great question.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
If you have a family they're really not sure where to begin, so to whom do we refer them, or just where should we say, this is where you need to begin, just to learn about all these programs?
So the question was, where do you begin if you want to learn about all the programs for financial tools and solutions? I would say Carolyn actually would be my answer right there is who you want to go to, but I'm sure Karen, from her perspective, could be immensely helpful as well.
Sure, and what I would add to that is if you're computer literate, honestly, the on-site website for the Kentucky Stable accounts, that's very easy to follow. But if not, or you just need some help, we at Life Plan, we're happy to help people wade their way through it.
As I said, Karen helped someone open an ABLE account. I mean,
I did,
seriously.
yeah, I have.
We have existing clients we'd like to move into ABLE accounts.
Yes, we do.
Really, it would be a better fit for them.
Yes.
We
You know,
have
they're-
families that are not certain if they want to do the special needs trust or the ABLE account, they're just not certain.
Talk to
where
me.
they want to
Call
do this.
Talk to me.
Because I think,
Yeah,
Karen,
but
Yeah,
you need to
talk to
understand parents may need to do, but want to do both.
right,
Okay, they may really
right.
want to have an ABLE account.
Especially in situations where you've got other children besides the one child who's the person with a disability that you may want to also be able to provide for, because if your child with a disability has Medicaid waiver services, for example, whatever's in that ABLE account will go up to the full amount of medical expenses paid for back to Medicaid. At least from the time the account's open. And Carolyn, my question about that was I've actually seen conflicting information. So that's why I wasn't 100% certain that it's only from the time the account is opened. But I will do some more research on that.
and what is your contact information?
It's on my screen.
It's on
on the
yours.
Dropbox.
It's in the
You get there.
Dropbox.
Oh, thank you, OJ.
There you go.
There you go.
That'll work.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Holly may have had Holly have a question?
No, I don't.
A question from a person online is, what types of expenses are not qualified with a stable account?
Well, that's actually a good and open question. So what is not qualified an expense, or what is non-qualified expense for a stable account? Well, it looks a number of different ways. So the thing with the Achieving a Better Life Experience Act is that you would hope that folks are able to use it to do just that, to achieve a better life experience. So it's hard to say. This is for Kentucky, and really for a number of states, because Ohio was the first one again this past summer to open up one of these accounts. This is the first tax season where we're actually kind of figuring that out. So it's hard to say. What I'll refer you to is the list that would be on the website. That'd be the safest bet. That way, no one's giving you any wrong information. We made a joke in another presentation that as long as you're not spending it on lottery tickets and booze, you're probably in a good position. Because again, it's up to the IRS and some of those other agencies that are going to see, is this qualified or is it not? Kentucky's not going to be checking you. I'm not going to be, knocking on your door to get your receipts and that kind of thing. But you do want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and looking on the website to see what's listed there. So I'd say most things, again, if they qualified, if they related to the disability itself, to an education-related expense, to it could be related to a vehicle or paying for mortgage or rent or something of that nature.
I think, a good example on the presentation that Carolyn showed was, housing and rent, basic living expenses, medical bills, education, transportation, and then assistive technology. And yeah, and health and wellness. And I think a good, especially with transportation, the example I was always given was there was a lady that had to have a van to get to work, and she wasn't able to save the amount of money until this ABLE account came out, where she was able to save $14,000 because previously it was only $2,000. And so, she was able to use that ABLE account and save up enough money to fix those car problems and then still have money for other things.
I think I understand this, but I want to ask you, I have 2 adult children with disabilities and no other children. So we have to plan for both of them. The ABLE account, if one of my children has money left in it, it goes back to Medicaid. There's no exception for that money to go to the other child.
Well, to the first part of that, so the question, can money within the stable account, can it go somewhere besides Medicaid?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it would depend, of course, when you open that stable account, when that individual received Medicaid. So Medicaid is only able to I guess, participate in the payback period based on when that stable account was open.
Okay.
So they can't take it prior to that point. And to your second part about could it roll over, I don't believe that it can, unfortunately.
But a special needs pool can
Yep.
be left to the
Yes, you
sibling.
can.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
Great.
Because there's a piece of the Social Security Act that specifically authorizes the pooled trust to retain funds for use of other people with disabilities, and that would certainly include a sibling.
2 comments from online. The first one is, thank you so much for this presentation. Very excited to obtain this information.
Great.
Second comment is, if a person has an ABLE account, investment account, then hopefully it increases in value. Does that growth count toward lifetime limits?
Yes.
Well-
Well,
Not life.
yeah, not lifetime
lifetime.
limits. Okay, so that's actually a great question. Does it count towards lifetime limits? Lifetime limit, I'm assuming that person's asking about is that $426,000.
Correct, because it was asked much earlier and we saved it.
Yes, it's a great question. This is one I'll write down to double check. I want to say no, but I don't want to be wrong on that. Go ahead.
I think it includes the entire balance, but I also don't think it's an actual lifetime limit. I think it's an overall account limit, which could go up and down over the course of a person's life. It's not truly a lifetime limit.
Because money would go in, money would come out.
And I believe that includes, actually, I'm positive that includes the principal plus the growth on it. And the distinction is that, for example, that first $100,000 limit, the person may not receive SSI income anymore, but they still retain SSI eligibility. So you're not having to reapply if you go over that first limit. Whereas if you go over the 426, you may actually have to reapply for SSI when it falls below it. Okay? So those are the two distinctions that I understand in the 2 limits.
I think that's how I understand it too. I'm taking the note here to double check. And if we're not able to get it back to you today, then I'll make sure to get it out to these
But
folks.
how long would
Send
it
that
take
to
to
everybody.
get $400,000
At
at
$14,000
$14,000 a clip? I mean, just
Right.
that,
Right, and that $14,000 a year is total from everyone who would have contributed to that account. It's not
Right.
$14,000 per person,
That's right.
such as with gift splitting on other things that you can do in other scenarios. It's a total of $14,000 per account per year, and the person can only have one account.
That's right.
A question from online from Karen. Can SSI back pay funds be deposited into a stable account?
Yes. Up to $14,000 per year. So, yes, that's the short answer. Yes. Yes.
A question from Jennifer online. Can my child have both an ABLE account and a 529?
Yes.
Yes.
And part of the answer to that is because it's the parents or whoever, grandparents or whoever created the 529, it actually belongs to them.
It's an excluded resource.
So it is an excluded resource. It's not counted. The 529A belongs to the person who is the beneficiary.
30 times 14 is 420, so it'd be about 30 years that it
I
would
won't be
take.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
A question online. As a parent, how do you leave a home for the child so that it would not create them from losing benefits?
You use a trust,
Third party.
a third-party supplemental needs trust.
I have a question. Can you go over once again the difference between a first-party special needs trust and the ABLE account? Is there like a,
How about,
like choose one or the other?
I'll just pull up one of my slides.
Sure.
Okay.
And what was the second part of your question? Is there a,
The difference between
Yeah.
a first-party
I got that.
and the ABLE.
Yes, but you had a second sentence to that. You said, is there,
A difference.
okay. Yes, there is a difference.
I mean, like, if I were to choose between a first-party and an ABLE, which one would I choose?
It would depend, it depends on your
just depends.
circumstances. And I can give you a few examples of why there's not a clean, clear, always the case answer to that. In some respects, the ABLE account makes more sense for the individual who has assets. For example, competent individuals who can manage their money or whom you want to teach to manage their money. It's a good tool for that purpose, to teach money management skills, investment skills if you're choosing investment options. It gives more autonomy, which is good for self-esteem. So there are lots of good reasons for an ABLE account. But the ABLE account, in some respects, has both more flexibility and less flexibility than the first-party trust account. So for example, right now, you can use funds in an ABLE account for food and shelter expenses. But if a person has SSI and only has a first-party special needs trust, if you use the money for food or use any of the money for food and shelter expenses, it can reduce the SSI amount. It may still be the best thing to do, but that's why there's not a simple, this is always better. You know, they both have places.
Yeah, and I'll say to add to that, that's a really good point. So as you're leaving here and you're having these conversations with your friends or other folks that aren't here, and they ask you that question, the answer is, well, what makes the most sense for you? And typically it could be both.
Right.
So there's not, well, I should get ABLE accounts because of my specific situation, or I should do a first party needs trust or a third party needs trust. What is your personal situation? What's going on with the beneficiary or with you, whomever the individual is? And that's how you answer that question. It's an excellent question to ask. It's never going to be one over the other. It could be both. It could be all of them. And so that's something to always keep in mind when you're trying to figure out how to answer that.
Okay, so my situation is that I'm a widow. I have a special needs child. She's 35 years old and she's very functional, but she doesn't have money managing skills. So I am her court-appointed legal guardian. She could not manage her ABLE account on her own. She
Okay.
loves to spend and she doesn't have a concept. The thing is that she lives with me and I claim her as a dependent so that I can file as head of household. However, so she gets survivor disability benefits from my husband as well, and she has worked. So she just lost her job, but she worked, but she got very little, but she worked for all these years. So she also gets Social Security income. But since she lives with me, her needs are not that expensive. And I do take like a monthly expense from her. That is just expenses that we share. But there's still money left over. And I don't want to also spoil my status of her spending on, just things that she doesn't need. And then for tax purposes, if she spends on 50% more on her expenses than I do, then I lose that status. So, so what would I do? So I guess an ABLE account would be good for me to just kind of transfer that money, that extra money, so we don't go over the.
Well,
2,000.
does she have SSI?
She has.
Sounds
I
like
thought-
she has SS.
It sounds like you have RSDI.
She has a childhood disability benefit.
Yeah.
She has she gets Social Security and then the survivor disability benefit because my husband.
Right, so she doesn't have SSI. If she does, she has RSDI and possibly some SSDI.
Does she have Medicaid?
She has Medicaid, she has Medicare,
Does she have the Michelle P. waiver?
she has a Michelle P.
Okay, so-
That's why
Medicaid.
she has
So
Medicaid.
she has Medicaid. So, yes.
But it's-
She was getting
Yeah.
she was getting supplemental security income.
Right,
So once my
SSI,
husband died,
right. She
that
switched
stopped,
over.
And then she switched over.
That's right.
Right.
She is a childhood disability beneficiary.
Right.
And so she gets RSDI, which is Retirement Survivors Disability Insurance. It's based on the work record of a parent
Right.
who has become disabled, died, or retired.
So
Okay.
my question is, does she have these things to spend it on?
Yes, I have to like make her spend it on. So, I went to the Social Security office and then, they said that you can split it up and I read all the tax stuff. It's very, very vague as to what constitutes support. Like if she just goes out and spends, on things that make her happy, but they're not real support. Like if she only spent on that, she wouldn't have money, rental money or stuff.
So
like
let
that.
her start saving in an ABLE account.
So an ABLE would be good
Sure.
for her.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
She actually brought up something that I was curious about. Is it different, do different rules apply when you have a child that gets survivor's benefits?
Rather than SSI?
Right.
Yes.
My son receives survivor's benefits. The majority of his monthly deposit is survivor's benefits. He does, however, receive a small amount of Social Security income.
SSI,
SSI.
Supplemental Security.
As well, a very small amount. He has a Medicare card and he also has a Medicaid card.
That's
But his
right.
Medicare card is his primary
That's right.
source.
That's
And then
right.
he has the Medicaid card. I was wondering how, with the funds that I set up, would it be different for someone that it has survivor's benefits versus somebody who's regular with SSI? Is there different rules that apply to that?
There are different rules. The question is, are there different rules for people who have RSDI or SSDI versus SSI, the Supplemental Security Income? And the answer to that is yes, there are different rules, but not as they relate necessarily to setting up ABLE accounts. For example, with SSI, the means tested program, those funds are supposed to be used first for food and shelter. For anything related to the disability, if it's in a trust or an ABLE account, it's supposed to be for the sole benefit of that person with the disability. If the person has just only survivor benefits and not SSI benefits, everything has to be used for the benefit of, but you notice the big word that was missing, or the little word that was missing? The sole benefit. That's a huge deal to the SSI folks. So if there's SSI and/or Medicaid waiver services, you better make sure you're using it for the sole benefit, okay?
And
In
my,
terms of the able account, it doesn't matter.
okay. What I wanted to set up an account for my son for is for when I'm no longer here to supply him with things that his money doesn't pay for.
So,
And so, our,
Because he is a little bit spoiled, and he has I mean, not really spoiled, but, you know, he Jackie's not agreeing with that. But like, for example, every Thursday night, he knows he's autistic, he doesn't talk, I mean, he's totally disabled. But every Thursday night, we go to the dollar store and we go shopping, and he gets basically any snack that he wants. And then when we're done with the dollar store, we get ice cream at Dairy Queen, and then we go and get pizza or chicken.
so
It's
he
date
needs a
night.
third-party supplemental needs trust.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
He needs something
Because
to
it's your money that would go, so, yeah, because it's your money that would go into a trust, you're gonna have a trustee, and then that money could come out to do that kind of stuff.
I want him
That's
to
right.
be able to do the things that he enjoys, which mostly
Right.
revolves around food.
And at least, and at least
Which
with
most of
Life
us.
Plan,
Yeah.
we now have something kind of similar to a stable
Yeah.
card.
Okay.
yeah,
It's called a True Link card.
Good.
Yeah.
That money can be loaded onto, so the person, he could go to the dollar
So,
store and
Right.
take
when
his
I'm
True
no
Link
longer
card,
here and whoever's taking care of him, they could get that
yep,
get money loaded onto that card, and he could go,
and live the life he is accustomed to with ice cream and chicken.
there you go.
Amen.
yeah,
As long as they take a credit card and.
Great life.
Yeah.
And I've also, you were talking about people that have purchased homes. My husband and I actually purchased a home for my child Lydia. And he receives it, supports for community living, right, Jackie, SEL. So there are staff that comes to his home and
That's awesome.
takes care of him.
So you need to figure out that house.
So,
you need
the trust
the
can
trust-
own it.
the
well,
trust
what I
can own it.
had in mind was I also have another child. And I do have a will, and what I was thinking is that when that home is paid for, that I would leave my son that's disabled a lifetime on the property, and then it would go to my other son. Would it be better for me to set up a trust, or could I do it that way with the
You-
lifetime and leaving it to my
You
other
can
child?
do the life estate.
Mhm. What if he dies?
What if he, yeah,
What if your son without a disability, predeceased is your son with a disability? You got a
Right.
problem.
Oh, yeah.
I do have a problem.
I had a mom one time say to me, why do I need a
never
trust?
thought
I have
about
3
that.
children, why do I need a trust? I said, death, bankruptcy, divorce.
divorce.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and you know,
I mean,
in
that's
my-
why.
in my- I never thought of that.
Sorry.
In my mind, the
Good.
13-year-old is going to outlive the one that's 26
Well,
with autism.
you assume that. You assume
But
that.
Thank you.
But it is just an assumption. It's an
Well,
assumption.
And those same 3 things, death, disability, and divorce, and loss of jobs and other things, are also reasons why you don't just leave everything that you want to have available for the child with the disability to the other children.
To depend on them to make sure.
You
that-
can't do that because it may be taken out of their hands, you know?
Gosh, it's death, divorce, bankruptcy. I forgot bankruptcy. Sorry.
Yep,
Bankruptcy's a lot of
Yes.
fun.
If you set up a third-party trust, does that money have to come from someone else, or can that individual with disabilities also contribute?
No.
Don't call me England. No.
Never, ever,
Never,
ever
Remember,
pollute the trust.
somebody else.
Outside
Well,
other
because
than that.
the person with the disabilities money could go to an able
An able,
account
yeah.
or
Yeah.
could go to a first party account.
Right.
And remember, that has the Medicaid payback.
Right.
Third party does not. I'm looking at you moms, okay? So what you don't, if you commingle it, then you've created Medicaid state recovery.
Right.
So that's why they don't.
And loss of benefits while the mess is straightened out. So don't ever, ever, ever do that.
There's a question online. If a parent names a child with a disability as the beneficiary for a home or life insurance,
Bad idea.
Bad idea.
what account do you put those funds into so that Medicaid cannot come back to claim them?
You create a third party supplemental needs trust, and that becomes the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. And that's where your will says that's where that house would go. So it doesn't go directly to the person first.
And what is being described by that question is what sometimes leads to what I call accidental inheritances that that cause all kinds of problems for the person with the disability because there's a loss of benefits potential, especially where there's a big chunk of money, or maybe the house can't go into an ABLE account, and there's no trust, and you need time to get it set up. And in the meantime, it's being counted as income resources. And you may have to start all over again, or on an emergency base.
Karen and I have worked with people who've lost the supports for community living waiver.
Right.
Oh my God. Okay, thank you, ladies. That has 1,000 people waiting list on it.
Right.
20 years.
I mean, so it's, and if you lost the Michelle P waiver, there are only 5,000 people on that waiting list.
Yeah.
So you don't,
And they only open up 200 to 300 at a time.
I'm so.
That's why we're
That's
so
crazy.
careful.
Yeah.
That's why
What you got?
Yes, we're happy to be here. Yeah.
All of the above. Yes.
A question from Karen online. Can you repeat the information regarding if money from ABLE account is used for rent, does it reduce the monthly SSI benefit?
No,
If it's paid that month,
Yeah.
if it's paid that month, right. If it's paid that month.
doesn't count as income.
It will count as a resource the following month if it's still sitting there.
A question online from Lorraine. My daughter is 36 and lives with us. She gets survivor benefits because her dad is retired. She also gets SSI. I opened a regular bank account, which I pay her rent to us and all her personal needs. Should I have opened an ABLE account instead?
No, what she did is fine.
If you end up with too much money
Like me.
in that bank account, that's where
Exactly
then,
what I have.
then you
That's a
would.
bank account.
Then you open
The
it.
SSI check cannot go into an ABLE account.
Correct.
Okay, so you have to have the bank account.
Right.
Or the SSDI survivors benefits. You have to have the bank account. So it's when you have too much money that then you would consider either opening an ABLE account, or for a first party special needs trust with lifetime, you have to have $1,000, not 50, but 1,000 to open an account. And there are fees. So yes, you do want the bank account. It's just you have excess money, you can't spend it, then you need to do something with it.
And in that case, the amount of excess money would be $2,000.
Right, so this might be, what happens
Everything
sometimes, OJ, is
over
that every
2,000.
month, you know,
Everything
people are
close.
spending money down. They're figuring out, so what can I go spend $200 or $300 on?
Right.
Yeah.
So they can put the $200 or $300 into an ABLE account,
Right.
and then,
So for Lorraine, she could, if she had excess money, instead of spending, if she didn't want to spend it, she could put that in an ABLE account.
Correct.
Yes.
exactly.
A question in reference to the last question, or a previous question. I'm a single parent and my son is an only child. That's why I was asking, how do I leave my home and life insurance benefits to him?
Through the trust.
Trust.
And then she can name other individuals, his children if he happens to have any, siblings, brother, right. Anyone else, charities, at his death, whatever. She has control over what would happen at his death, but she needs to do it through a third-party trust of one type or another, pooled or individual, either way, to make sure that his benefits are protected.
Lorraine online says, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorraine.
We've run out of time today. I would like to thank all of our panelists for their time and sharing their time and expertise with us. Thank you.
There's a survey.